And 1, 2, 3. Just a second, it's loading. And we should be live again. Hi everyone, hope you can see and hear us well. We had some technical difficulties, but now we're all here. And today we have an awesome live Q&A with amazing investors from all around the world for you to ask questions. So my name is Arvydas. I'm co-founder and CEO of Eddie Travel's AI Assistant, which helps you find the best hotel deals for your weekend getaway to run away from the COVID occupied cities. And with me today we have Sunil Sharma from Techstars Toronto tuning in from Toronto. Okay, great. Do you want to say a couple of words about yourself, Sunil?
Sure. Yeah. So Sunil Sharma, the Techstars Accelerator in Toronto is the program that I've been managing director since we started a little over 3 years ago. And so Techstars is the global platform for investment in innovation. We have 45 accelerators around the world. I look after the one here in Toronto, Canada. And a couple of years back, I met with Edmundas and his great team at Eddie Travels in Lithuania. Met online. This is even before COVID required that, but we were connecting through online chat and whatnot, and found it to be an exceptional company. And then I visited Vilnius late last year after Web Summit and was just blown away by the city and the caliber of entrepreneurs. So that's what led Edmundas and I to sort to do an outreach to see more great startups from Lithuania and the region, including nearby Belarus, where I also visited.
Yeah. Jens, I see you're ready to say hi to everyone.
Yes, hello everybody. My name is Jens Damsgaard. I'm a partner in Open Circle Capital. That is one of the shareholders and investors into Eddie Travels. We have our headquarters in Vilnius, but are also working out of Helsinki and Copenhagen. I'm actually normally working out of Copenhagen area, but I'm actually in Vilnius right now. And I am looking forward to discuss startup communities fundraising in Eastern Europe with you, all of you.
Thanks, Jens. Arvydas, how are you?
I'm always good. Thank you for asking. Yes, so good evening to everyone. Pleasure again to be on an event, even though online one. We had a good kind of timepiece to go to physical events, but now it seems like we'll be back to online for a long time. I'm investment director of Practica Capital. We are the leading venture capital fund in Lithuania, operating for more than 10 years. And partnering with the best tech companies in Lithuania. So we are happy for that, and we are kind of very thankful for entrepreneurs trusting in us. We topped up our fund. Now we have close to 30 million. I made 14 investments and are looking to do 10 more in the next 12 months. So very, very happy about that. Yeah, thanks.
Awesome. And today with us, we have a special guest straight from Belarus. Nastia, please can you say a couple of words about yourself?
Thank you very much for inviting me, especially for like a special guest. Looking forward to get involved in this event and share with our community. And in case you have any questions regarding Belarus startup ecosystem, how it's going in these breakthrough times, please go ahead. I'm ready to reply, to discuss with you, and frankly saying, I'm a co-founder of Imaguru Startup Hub, so that's why I'm here to reply and answer all your questions.
Thank you, Nastia. So it's a pleasure to have you here and safe and sound with all the trouble happening in Belarus, and hopefully we can also answer some questions for startups from Belarus and help connect the European startup ecosystem better.
In fact, Edmundas, can we start with that? Because I think it's really the most important story that any of us are contemplating in our own like professional and personal lives right now is just watching what's happening. And I had the privilege of visiting Minsk because of you, Edmundus. You suggested it, and then Nastia received me on the other side. It was an easy flight from Vilnius. I still remember it. And of course, now in the circumstances, and I'm seeing that many of the people that I met, some of the angel investors, some of the tech founders, I've been worrying about what's happening to them, how bad the situation is, and really what's the future for entrepreneurs in the short term in Belarus, Nastia.
Thank you very much for such a privilege to start. I don't know whether it's fair for the startup ecosystem to start from Belarus situation, but anyway, if you are interested, of course. Yes, Belarus now experienced the hardest time, and this is also related to, of course, this is related to startup ecosystem because many of those people who you met in Minsk were detained or arrested or beaten. Some of the startup founders are still in jail. Of course, because of no reason about that. Only because of that they have different position towards the current regime. We also startups are operating in the system in the country where we have law default, so no laws are active. We have violence on the streets. Some of the startup founders or people who work for startups, they disappear sometimes and appear in places like we call jail. Of course, a lot of startup deals are frozen. Frankly saying, we've conducted a survey recently, very recently. Imaguru Startup Hub asked startups how they feel during this crisis. And more than 80% of startups, they of course feel this negative effect from political crisis, like we call it. And for a majority of them, this crisis is more negative than the COVID-19 crisis. So what else I could share with you from this survey? A lot of startups, majority of startups, they're afraid of simply losing their business companies. For example, we have this, like we say, vivid story about PandaDoc, one of the most successful startup from Belarus. The founders of PandaDoc, they initiated by themselves, not only as a company, as a PandaDoc, like individuals, they initiated a fund to support military people who don't want to follow the regime pressure on people or torture to Belarusian people. They supported financially those people, and of course this initiative was very much successful. A lot of military people left their positions and apply for the help. And in order to press on the founders of PandaDoc, the Belarusian regime, they arrested 4 people from the team, and they put arrest on the accounts of PandaDoc in Belarus. So that's why a lot of startup founders, they simply appeared in the situation when there is a huge pressure on their business and they need to survive and save their companies. So a lot of companies now, a majority of startup founders, they have already left Belarus for Ukraine, Lithuania, Poland, Latvia, and other European Union countries. And a lot of them are planning or partially relocated from Belarus. So this is a huge problem now in Belarus. And of course, this is a temporary relocation for Belarusian startups, but still founders of Belarusian startups, they are strong. They've proved that they could run their businesses even in such hard and uncertain times, and they're still raising funds, and they still need money, and they still and they show their emotional strengths and power and leadership, and especially women leadership. So that is why our startup community are still struggling in this situation and ready to work, ready to raise funds, make business, and a lot of them also organize different civil initiatives to save Belarus.
Thank you very much, Nastia. And maybe Sunil, you could share some advice for Belarusian startups since we're diving deeper into this question. And by the way, we're live on Facebook. Everything is great. We're getting questions and have 32 people watching us right now. So we finally worked out our technical glitches. Sunil, do you want to unmute yourself?
Yeah, so I don't have too much in the way of advice other than, I think it's when we met with Eddie Travels in Lithuania, and the idea was that, there's an incredible company which has this pool of engineering and technical talent and designers and just great talented people in a relatively small country, Lithuania, Canada too, relatively small country, in comparatively speaking. And the idea that you can create a company and grow it sort of simultaneously in two jurisdictions, maybe the legal structure or headquarters for attracting investment may be in a place like Canada, but truly the business is building and thriving in Lithuania. I would imagine with Belarus, and right now, Nastia, you're sitting in Lithuania, so you're over there, and you just mentioned that countries like Ukraine and Lithuania are starting to absorb some of the entrepreneurs from Belarus. And I'm thinking that, I know there's a lot of conflict and a lot of serious questions in the short term, midterm, as to how Belarus will kind of reinvent itself and sort itself out through the crisis. But the entrepreneurs have, I think, the opportunity to build their companies simultaneously in one or two or three jurisdictions, and really can grow the business and maybe temporarily move outside like you are right now. And we have investors on this panel very close to Belarus, so I'm guessing this is probably not a profound idea, but you're able to invest and maybe bring entrepreneurs over to a nearby country and yet still engage in the talent pool in Belarus, which I know is very deep. So I'll turn it over to people who have much more expertise on this than I do.
Yeah, so we're already getting questions with what startup Nastia mentioned. It's pandadog.com. Go check it out. Go check out safepandadog.org, website dedicated to people arrested from the PandaDog startup. 3 of them were recently freed, but one person, the head of the product from PandaDog, is still in jail by the Lukashenko regime. Arvydas, you're of course from Lithuania and right next to Belarus. Have you already interacted with some startups from Belarus, and also how is the pandemic affecting the whole situation?
So of course we have interacted. We have one investment from our previous fund in Belarusian team. It's a gaming company, and we cannot reach the founder as well. And we know that he was a big activist of old Belarusian language and was arrested many times. So we are a bit scared what's happening. We don't know, and we also know that there is a big influx of basically talent to Lithuania, right? And then we have this is kind of unprecedented opportunity not only to support our neighboring country, right? That we share a lot of common history, which was kind of downgraded over the time by the regime, but also to kind of accommodate the talent temporarily, because I believe Belarusian nation will win this fight, and all the kind of talent pool will come back, and this is a temporary measure. So I know that we have our top tech companies, they are really increasing the focus to Belarus to accommodate the talent. We also know that Lithuanian state made efforts to open up Schengen border with Belarus, which is not an easy task for a brief moment of time to kind of allow everyone to pass through more easily. And we have a very limited window, so it's 6 months only. So we really, I think, believe in a huge, not believe, we know the path, we know how hard it is, we know that it is a fight that we can support, but we cannot interfere directly. And we are welcoming, we're looking, and in any means that we can to help the tech talent and the people of Belarus, for sure.
So the window is open right now, the 6 months, so the Belarusian entrepreneurs and talent can shift over to Lithuania at the moment?
Yeah, it's you know, like, maybe we're going too deep into this discussion, but basically, like, to relocate to Lithuania or any EU, you need a state issued kind of, I don't know, note that you are not, you have no criminal record. And imagine getting this now in Belarus, you know? So there are a lot of all these obstacles, and then opening the bank account, it's a lot of stuff. And migration is not easy topic. It was not even easy even before this crisis. It is very hard to relocate to Lithuania because of all this. It's not bureaucratic, but it is a procedure, right? And it's extremely hard. But right now, I think it's kind of common effort to really free it up, to open it up, and to help this talent. And we know a lot of signs, like there are no basically apartments to rent in Vilnius. Everyone is buying property from Belarus, relocating here. Companies are opening up, and they are looking to buy small agencies. So I think one thing that for sure there is a big push to Lithuania from businesses, from startups, but also we are receiving, and we should, I think, receive more. This is again like an opportunity to show our solidarity and to receive this talent here in Vilnius, Lithuania.
Thank you, Arvydas. Gents, have you seen startups from Belarus coming to Denmark? Have you had a chance to work with any startups from Belarus?
No, I haven't. Not in my capacity of working with the Danish and Scandinavian companies, but from Open Circle Capital. We have worked with a few companies out of Belarus. We didn't make investments there, but we were sort of doing the due diligence. But what really sort of is the sad thing is that a lot of those companies, they are really busy leaving Belarus. I mean, as soon as they have money on the account, they open offices in San Francisco, and they are just running away. And I'm not sure that sort of the startup community is sort of stabilizing the situation in that sense. Of course, we should work towards a situation where, and that's actually the same all over Eastern Europe, I would say. Of course, it's a bit more extreme in Belarus now, that the startup companies would be able to grow and build their companies sort of on domestic markets and support them. I'm not saying that this is not global business, because it is. We have customers all over the world. But I would say that all the billions that governments are investing into Eastern European venture capital funds, they would sort of expect them to be able to have some of the company grown at home and to stay in the domestic markets. Otherwise, Eastern Europe is just exporting talents and companies and profits to investors in Western Europe and basically the US. I think that's an issue we need to talk to. And I think that issue will be even more important now with the pandemics, where a lot of the public capital in the future probably will be drying out. And then I think it gets really difficult for startup communities in Eastern Europe, and of course in Belarus in particular. That was a long talk.
Talent moving away from countries is of course a long discussion, but it's a bit different situation now in Belarus, right? It's not only talent moving away, is actually you can't feel safe in the country. So I guess that we're approaching that question from that side. But we can, of course, come back to this in a second too. Nastia, if you would have, I don't know, like any idea or suggestion to share with everyone, how could we support startups from Belarus right now, or encourage investors to check startups from Belarus? Where could they go right now and learn more?
Well, how international community could support Belarusian startups? First of all, I would like to say that I've already told to Edmundas that Belarus are happy to have such friend like Lithuania, which emotionally and in other different approaches and ways support Belarus. That's really great for us. Everybody in each of the country could share the information about what is going on in Belarus. I could share in the comments below different channels, informative channels in English, where you could grab some really needed information what is going on in Belarus. Also, if you feel that you could secure some time to help some startup founders from Belarus, just let us know as well, because really they need some support because they split their time between civil activism and running up their businesses. That is why, of course, they need some mentorship and advice from international community. Some investors, especially pre-seed or seed investors, could also take a look at the companies, like I said before, which are running by strong and emotionally strong startup founders. And also don't forget to believe that we can and we win. That's something emotional,
Thank you, Nastia. So we know that Sunil, Techstars Toronto, is gearing up for new applications for the new class of Techstars Toronto. A great opportunity, investment of potentially $120,000 US, and a great program in Toronto. How are you? Firstly, how would you invite the startups from Belarus to apply, and what can the program offer? Especially, is it going to be remote next year again, or?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, absolutely. It will. First of all, it will be remote. All of our programs around the world, all 45 at the moment, are running remotely. We just finished one in Toronto about a month ago. There were companies that took part remotely from Nigeria, from Istanbul, Turkey, so Lagos, Istanbul, Krakow, Poland, as well as from across Canada. And we're looking for the next class now. In fact, applications are open. And it would be a pleasure to interact with companies from throughout the region, throughout Eastern Europe, of course, again, from Lithuania and Belarus, but other countries, Latvia, Poland, Estonia. It would be a fantastic way to just kind of experience what these entrepreneurs are building, what kind of market they're trying to capture, what type of investors they're looking to gain attention from, and then perhaps a country like Canada, which has a vibrant startup ecosystem, fast-growing communities of tech entrepreneurs across many of our big cities, including here in Toronto. And of course, a country that's predicated from the beginning on immigration, on multiculturalism, on embracing people from all over the world. And so usually when entrepreneurs end up in Canada, which we're hoping soon, the flights will start flying again to around the world. That'll be good for you, Edmundas, with your core company, Eddie Travels, of course, as well. But when the entrepreneurs start to come, they usually feel quite at home in a city like Toronto. They find communities. You were... Edmundas, when he came here with his team, Adomas, Pranas, and the others, they became like the Lithuanian sensations of Canada. They figured out the ecosystem. There was huge communities.
Maybe you can share what are you looking for right now? For example, what kind of startups are most interesting for you? And it's great to hear that it's going to be remote, so startups from Belarus and of course Lithuania and other countries can really easily apply. But do you have a new focus in this pandemic era? Is there any topics or themes that startups from those industries should specifically apply?
No, it's the same as it was before. It's a city program, so it doesn't have any industry focus, although there's no question that we're starting to see interesting innovation in the kind of remote work environment, distance learning, education, a lot of the tools that we're seeing that are allowing us to stay connected around the world. Those are great areas for investors to be investing in. Things relating to digital health, that's another fantastic area. So if there are companies that are building incredible innovation in those vertical domains, it's very timely. But at the same time, you're a travel tech startup, and even in spite of a pandemic that has put the brakes on a lot of international travel and even regional travel, I still think that the travel industry is a fantastic industry to be paying attention to, and there's a lot of disruption. So any industry, as before, just great entrepreneurs is really what we look for.
Sounds great. Thank you, Sunil. And Arvydas, of course, the recent closure of nearly 30 million euro fund. Is there any new topics, or like what industries are most interesting for you now, where you will be scouting for startups, and also, you know, like is there anything that you're planning to do to work with startups from Belarus?
Yeah, thank you. These are all great questions. Basically, the fund increases is kind of, we were going there very, very focused for past 10 years with the ambition to have a bigger fund, because it's clearly ecosystem is maturing by day. Baltic founders are much more kind of educated. They know how to build great products. Still, there is some lacking in product ownership, kind of sales and marketing. But ecosystem, we're living in golden age. So this is 100%, right? So many smart people. COVID actually brought a lot of opportunities. So one of them is definitely for Eddie Travels. We kind of believe that great entrepreneurs use such extraordinary times to really benefit, and not only in commercial traction, but probably pull resources up to build great features, to prepare for when markets are open and so on. And Eddie Travels pivots, and overall, kind of this is, and Eddie being second-time founder is precisely the reason why we invested in Eddie Travels during COVID when it launched, right? So this is something that you cannot be afraid. And some of the countries during COVID, they took this route of paying compensations when you close down the company. For startup, it is bankruptcy straight. You cannot close the startup. It must keep running, because corporations close. Startups must take this opportunity. So I would say COVID is unique times for great entrepreneurs to act. And this will be the time when kind of the men will be differentiated from boys or women from girls. This is the time. The great founders will emerge, will conquer, will pivot, and will do everything what they can, because startup is about failing as fast and cheap as possible, right? So you park whatever on course and use something else. So for us, it is the most active time, the most busy time. From March, we never met more startups. We never kind of heard more interesting stories. We never also heard so many struggles emotionally and kind of how to deal when your team is locked down, how to deal when you have to do remote, and you really manage your business through dashboards. You don't see the people, don't interact with them. So it's very, very interesting times. In those times, we also managed to increase the fund size, right? This was kind of very big effort from our side, and also very big appreciation and commitment from Swedbank, which is now the largest investor in kind of venture capital asset class in the Baltics, backing three Estonian fund managers, and now the first Lithuanian fund manager in venture capital. So we believe that not only we as VC can talk that, oh, we have maturing ecosystem, but right now institutional money is recognizing that there is a potential return in this asset class. This is very important milestone for the ecosystem, and I believe this first 2 million euro coming in venture capital in Lithuania is acknowledgement for all of our work, and there will be more fund managers getting it. And kudos to Swedbank for believing this, for trusting this, and I believe that even appealing to the future pensioners, right? Because your asset manager, your pension fund manager is investing. So when I kind of think about fund manager, who will pay my pension, I'd like for the guy to invest, or for the fund manager to invest in VC, because I believe it's outsized returns for sure, 100%. So yeah, it's a bit of a long answer, but I think we during COVID we scout, we made 4 or 6 investments and 3 new deals, and we're not going to stop 100%. This is too much opportunities here, and just to take it. and very happy that Techstars is here, very happy that Open Circle is also active. I mean, it's a lot of talent here, a lot of talent. And we're very happy also to work with Techstars, with Eddie Travels, because our, 100 or 200K extra money really gives a different outcome for a team trying to do something in Toronto, right? It makes a difference. This was Eddie's advice to us all along for the last several years, and we heard it and we acted on this. So yeah, thank you. That would be it probably.
Thank you, Arvydas. And on that note, gents, are there any new topics or themes that are interesting for Open Circle Capital or you personally in this time of pandemic?
But I think it was very well presented by Practica here. There's a lot of opportunities, and of course the sort of main thing for us now is to figure out how long time is this going to last. Is this giving birth to new trends, and where is that going to take us? And most likely, yes, new trends are born. How will we interact with these others in the future? How will we buy our food? How will we work? How will we transport ourselves? We still remains to see how big differences there will be introduced after the COVID crisis. And I say after because if there is an after, and if you don't believe me, just take a look at the stock price or real estate market. But of course, we are trying to spot for trends now that sort of is going to stay with us and invest into these trends. Digital health is one of them. Industry 4.0 may be even more important now. Robotics, drones, and medtech technology in general. Wearables is also areas that we are looking into.
Thank you, gents. And
so as I think it was Churchill that says, let's not waste a good crisis.
Yeah, absolutely. Nastia, I cannot ask. Of course, pandemic is not as relevant in Belarus right now, but I saw so much social activity, especially in startup founders, and all kinds of digital tools spring up. So, like in general, like how startups are coping with this? Are there any topics that are now very hot amongst startups in Belarus? And of course, firstly, dealing with internet disruptions, how do they manage to continue working? And maybe there are new startups that are springing up in this situation.
Yes, actually, when COVID started, and we also asked our startups how do they feel, and we saw that a lot of startups like they considered on their revenue even more during the COVID situation, and we compared those figures with European countries and see that our companies, our startup companies, are more rely on the revenue to attract rather than in our neighboring countries. That also shows the difference between the ecosystems. Like in Belarus, we don't have such a wide support from the government, or we don't have many different funds, venture funds. It's not so easy. Like not one-stop shop to attract and to raise funds. That's why Belarusian startups are used to focus more on revenue stream and their sales figures. But of course now we see that of course the political crisis affected them more, and they're more focused on recovering or covering of the circumstances and the situation with this crisis. But anyway, majority of our startups now, they pointed that they've already they have already adopted to this COVID crisis, and even more startup companies feel that COVID got even positive effect on their companies, especially for the game companies and some education, and other industries. We, like Imaguru and Tech Minsk accelerator, we have also some companies affected in our portfolio from the affected industry, and we see that they were able to remain their clients, suggesting some, popular approaches like saving the subscriptions and stuff like that. So in this case, Belarusian companies are more like European and startup founders from around the globe, like following the same like rules or best practices.
Thank you, Nastia. And by the way, we have some questions coming in the comment section below, also some spam. So ignore the spam, but let's look at some questions. We had a question about travel topics. Is travel, investing in travel startups on hold, or is it business as usual? Of course, it's not business as usual, but I guess our investors already answered that they're still looking into travel because it's being disrupted so much by the pandemic. So if you have something new and cool, my suggestion, just go for it. As Eddie travels, what we can see now, we never saw so much interest to talk with us from big corporate partners, from pretty much anyone in travel industry. Everyone is interested in cooperating, so it's a lot easier to get started than back in the day. We spent over 3 months just getting the first partnership to be able to start working with our chatbot with Skyscanner to get access to their flight inventory and start promoting flights. Does anyone want to add anything about travel industry? It's a spicy topic.
I mean, well, you had when you were in Toronto at Techstars, you were encountering other travel tech startups across North America, and I've been watching and sharing with you often articles, and there's been so much change. Some companies are wildly pivoting, others are seemingly laying off a lot of people, or potentially raising even more money. So it's so hard to sort of see where it's all settling. But we're optimistic. We heard it on this panel, optimistic about travel tech, and you're our bet on it. So give us an update. Like, how do you see your industry unfolding in the short term?
Sure. So I think a big chunk of travel industry is going to collapse in next year, partially because of continuous coronavirus pandemic, but also because of economic crisis fallout that we're going to have because of all of this. At some point, stimulus from governments is going to slow down, but it's going to take longer for the economy to catch up. And travel is also boosted, primarily by how well economy is performing, both in leisure and business. Business travel is going to suffer more, and I'm very happy that we're not in business travel. But travel will recover. People will start traveling again. They will, and we're adjusting our strategy specifically to how they will start traveling again. Firstly, it's going to be short trips near where you live by car to nature and similar trips. Then longer trips, but probably also still with car. Only then flights, probably short haul flights, and only then longer flights. And how people interact once they travel, and what do they do when they get to their destination is going to be very different. And we changed our product accordingly. We shifted focus from flights to lodging, to accommodation. We're now also looking more into car rentals and what we can do there. So like basic car rentals feature is already available on It Travels. But now we're primarily focused on helping people find disinfected hotels, and just so they could have a safe stay, for a weekend getaway or a family trip.
What about local trips? Are they rising within the country?
It's even in Lithuania, if you can go to a seaside or you can go to a small village, that's spiking up, and some places don't have any capacity. And this is the case around Toronto. This is the case around many major urban cities, and we're trying to help people to travel, at least, get out of their house, get out of that cabin fever, and breathe some fresh air.
Yeah, here in North America, like the hottest area is RV sharing. There's a company just today, RV Share, closed $100 million of funding in the US. We have one here in Canada called RV Easy that I know is doing very well. Boat sharing, kind of glamping, camping, there's like hip camp and all these cool ideas out of the valley that are, really powerful. I'm excited to use them. I travel around with a rooftop tent now on my car, and always looking for little short, last minute getaways that you can drive to and experience nature and just do something fun with the kids or by yourself. So I think what your idea of short-term travel from a large hub to, natural environments around where you live is the way of the world now for a little while. And it's also incredibly enjoyable. It's just like now everyone's finally waking up to it and getting involved.
Yeah. Just one of the trends. We're also looking to capitalize on a digital nomad trend that I think will explode in a year or so, because so many people are working remotely. At some point, they're gonna take off, and digital nomad trend is gonna double, triple, or we're gonna see what's gonna happen with that. But I think that's enough on travel. I of course would love to talk longer about it, but maybe next time. So then we also have a question for Techstars. Any limitations on a program? Is B2B engineering intelligence SaaS a good fit? Probably yes.
Yes. There's no limitation, but technical teams that are solving big problems in SaaS is any type of software, enterprise or even consumer-oriented software is interesting. It's interesting to all early stage seed investors around the world, and in Toronto no different. That's that's really back to the core of why Edmundas and I talk all the time. It's not just to update on Eddy Travel, but I know in the region that you're all in, it's a powerhouse of software development, of engineering, of data science, and that's great. So you have that as your advantage, and if you marry that up with some corporate relationships or investors in other parts of the world, different markets, it's an unbeatable combination. So we're looking to get those applications from you to Techstars Toronto.
Awesome. And then we have a longer question. Actually, it's 3 questions and 1 comment. And Jens and Arvydas, maybe you can feel free to split it and take parts of this. In fundraising, are there any bad numbers? Example, higher than usual early stage, but smaller than usual growth stage, or it doesn't matter at all. I guess the question is here about. Are we looking in the early stage startups for more growth or revenue? Is one or another thing worse? Is too much revenue and not so much growth a bad signal per se? Who would like to jump in on this?
I mean, traditionally, we have been looking at some of these key metrics for SaaS businesses at least. And they are probably familiar to most people. Otherwise, you can look them up. And of course, it's still super important to show some revenue growth in your business. What may be a little bit sort of a dark horse now, if we turn back to the pandemics, is the business, the traffic or whatever you are creating. Can that be added onto something else, where the value maybe actually emerge sort of in a partner company or a corporate company, or like you said before, Edmundas, that suddenly it's easier to talk to corporates. Suddenly they are actually looking at you because they are looking for solutions. I mean, they were caught sort of on the wrong feet, many of these big companies, and they are sort of trying to change the business models. They're trying to see if they can do stuff here. And of course, if you have a company that have some of those technologies, some of those competences, then your sort of specific SaaS metrics may not be so important. If we think could be an add-on to Lockheed Martin, or this could be an add-on to Bosch that actually could tap into what you are building, then maybe these metrics is sort of shifting a little bit. And that's also something that we are really looking into to see if there's some value hidden there in some of the startup companies.
Arvydas, so maybe to add on that, maybe you can share some benchmarks for SaaS companies, B2B enterprise or SaaS companies, the way you see them in Lithuania and in a wider region right now, that maybe people would have a more concrete understanding of what would be. Do you think what numbers do you would expect for, let's say, seed or Series A?
I would hate to put numbers on that. The first thing is that I'm actually the deep tech guy in Open Circle, but I think that you are welcome to reach out to me and to us, and definitely also at my partners if you want to talk more specific about those metrics. There's a lot of stuff that is sort of involved in that decision, but of course there is a valuation issue. I mean, there are some rules of thumbs, and they are probably still alive. And I must say, just to say that a short word about that, I'm a bit surprised about. There's relatively high valuations on SaaS companies in at least the Baltic states. I'm not sure how it is in entire Eastern Europe. And we actually see Scandinavian companies looking into the Baltic states and sort of raising funds there because of a higher valuation. That's just an interesting small observation.
Cool, thanks, gents. And Arvydas, would you like to add on this?
Yeah, it's kind of a question, or okay, let's put it another way. Typically, startups get sent off by this reason: too low traction, like not enough revenue. But this is irrelevant, right? So this is really relevant. Like for early stage, MRR or revenue or anything else is an outcome of something done right. And that something done right is typically domain expertise of founders. It's typically kind of ability to drive conversation, to close, not to linger, not to do like pointless stuff. So good investor will never tell you this, right? So it's just, okay, you have 10K MRR more, what does it change? Probably you will be stuck at 20K for the next 4 or 5 years. So this is, I believe, an early stage, like Techstars approach or this talent appreciation approach should be number one. So you should be able to see beyond these MRR numbers. Most definitely, there are benchmarks and good companies, they have good traction. This is for sure, but it doesn't mean that someone that doesn't have traction or traction could be detrimental to the value creation is necessarily the way to go, right? To have 5K MRR and then I'm going to raise, and then you not raise a fund, and then you say, but I have all the MRRs, and what's happening? So this is not a good idea. Typically, I would say for us, at least when we look in the company, the most important kind of items is how you prospect, how you are able to book demo calls or discovery calls, how you're able to split your business development or sales process into clear stages, and how you're able then to discover the client, to recognize pain points, and how you're able to close the deal. This is very important. So closing might not necessarily be a contract, might be a demo, might be initial feedback, might be kind of the commitments and whatnot, but it should be real. So for early stage, this is more important than just to have traction, purely like 5 or 10K MRR. Of course, for SaaS or B2B or anything like that, seed or Series A, there's clear differentiation. I would say Series A is 100K MRR, you should be approaching, you should have good churn, you should have a lot of very intrinsic metrics, right? You should have a good team behind, and there is always a combination. So traction, I would say, overall, like commercial results is just a small part of a very big puzzle. And it's not always about that. It's always about the team and their experience and they working together. Because if you have MRR, but you cannot hire or work with people, you won't be able to build a company, right? And then the best investor will not invest in you. And then you will go to the market saying, but I have all the numbers, but you cannot grow to 10 million euro ARR or I know 100, 150 or 120 because you cannot do everything alone. So this is like extended answer.
Got it. Well, let's turn this question around, because startups always have these questions like what numbers I should show, what numbers are good numbers, but what should startup have in general when they're approaching you? So as investors, maybe Sunil, maybe you can start with this. So what do you expect from startups to have when they apply to Techstars Toronto? What does a good application, good startup include?
Yeah, that's hard. It's hard to answer with a specific like number. It really varies. You know, we definitely are biased towards the team. I mean, just using you as an example, when we met, when you applied, it was clear to me that, you know, very strong founding team, but you didn't really have a lot of numbers at that time, right? You were like, I think you had just launched, you were still building products, but we were looking ahead and seeing, you know, how fast this could go and what your advantages are. But there are applications that come in, you know, with very strong numbers, with like revenue in the, you know, tens of thousands of dollars per month, MRR growing. Obviously, that's really interesting, but it's really kind of it's an art more than a science, judging at the stage we invest in. Where is this going to be 6 months or a year and a half from now in comparison? And it's also very comparative, right? Like at Techstars, we're always going to choose 10 companies, and it doesn't matter how many applications or how many companies we're interacting with. There's going to be 10 companies, and it becomes a comparison within that application pool. And that might vary from time to time. I don't know. But like, you know, we had a really interesting class that just graduated a month ago. There were some pretty strong revenue numbers in some of the companies. And then a few of them, they were really just launching, like they were just launching in the App Store or whatever, right when Techstars was starting. So the numbers weren't really strong, obviously, because they just launched, but we're looking ahead a little bit to see where they'll be. So the answer is, I don't know. Team, it's really the team.
Got it. Yeah, of course, that makes sense. Gents, maybe it's a bit different with maybe like a bigger deep tech and science related startups. That's kind of your thing. Maybe you can elaborate, like what should startups have when they're approaching you? What do you expect?
First of all, I think they should have a really strong technology base, and they should also have sort of a vision to change the world, basically. We love great ideas with a huge potential. And then I also think that I actually also like if we somehow can attract good old corporate world to some of these ideas, to develop these startups to a level where can actually have a discussion with some of the big corporate players and maybe tap into their infrastructure. So very often when we talk about meet these companies, we sort of sanity check them in our corporate network, which is Western Europe, but basically global, to see, does this have any sort of, does this work in corporate world? And then you can say, okay, great ideas and vision, and then you go to corporate world, that's a sure graveyard for that. Yes, that's right, but it's also sort of a sanity check in some of the cases.
Cool.
They are awfully expensive to develop, some of these companies, so we like to share the tickets.
Yeah, that's deep tech is expensive. Nastia, of course, before the turbulence in Belarus, you were running Tech Minsk accelerator,
Right.
and you're probably still supporting these teams. How do you pick teams for the Tech Minsk? Any specific criteria, because there was a boom of startups in Belarus? Yeah.
Yes, of course, we completely share those approaches that different investors also pay attention to, but we also see and try to evaluate the capacity of growth for each of the company, and it means a very wide due diligence for that. Not only figures and industry and market size and all other aspects. We also try to evaluate whether the leader or a founder or founders could deal with the situation in the future when the company should grow very fast. whether processes are built in a proper way, and whether the team is ready to adopt very fast and develop very fast. And that's probably what I wanted to add to all your opinions.
Cool, thank you. Arvydas, is there any, because we already kind of answered what you're looking for in the teams, and that since we're gearing towards the end of this live stream, maybe you could mention some new investments that you recently made and feature some startups, and we could go around and just share some interesting startups or recent investments from all of you.
Yeah. We are not disclosed because for a reason. We have some serious background information that intellectual property rights has to be kind of settled or sorted out before it's publicly announced. But I can talk about categories and I can talk about kind of numbers.
Categories or something that maybe was announced and that is relevant to the pandemic in some way.
Yeah. So for the pandemic, of course, we did investment in pet food space, which is booming, which is I think number 2 category on e-commerce, which is growing after, like toilet paper. So it's kind of amazing, very, very unique concept, very different proposition. It's a kind of organic, sustainable food, dehydrated, kind of made with long shelf life, water sucked out for easier transportation, and it's also human grade food. So there's a big humanization of pets trend, and kind of you have a concept where you source organic, where you air dry them, where you don't need a manufacturing facility, but you need kind of a decentralized mixing facility, so you can have very kind of agile operations around. So it's innovation from product to value chain. Then we did 2 marketplaces.
And is it public, the name of the investment? No? Okay.
But yeah, next week is going to be everything is going to be public. Yeah, and then we did kind of marketplace investment in a marketplace that sells basically game keys. It's pandemic and gaming industry is just boosting. So we of course we were very happy to make this investment. It's also going to be public, but this is really like I think 30, 40, 50% growth per month since March since the start of the pandemic. And then also we had another marketplace investment in, let's say, second-hand or recycled car parts. It's a kind of marketplace, also very interesting play in terms of arbitraging the price differences between Western and Eastern Europe, because Eastern Europe is good for disassembling the car, right, to 150, 200 SKUs. When you talk about Western Europe, they assemble to up to 50. Right, so it's much more greater detail, it's much more efficient, and then the price difference can go up to 10 times from UK. So it's also a lot of arbitraging opportunity to kind of eliminate all the brokers. So I would say very interesting spaces, very unique opportunities for COVID, but also great teams that we're building this for 2-3 years, right? And we've been monitoring, and we're just again astonished by this level of determination and the measured ambition, or you say when ambition has ammunition as well. It's not only like vision, but there's real understanding how to execute. Because I more and more I tend to believe that businessman is not the guy that has 100 ideas, but is the guy that executed one. So this is kind of what we're seeing now. We're super happy, and I think we are now looking into 5 new deals. 2 of them are in the late stage, and I think we're gonna make another 2 investments in this year. So gonna end up with 16 investments since launch in 2019, and 10 more to go.
Awesome. Jens, would you like to share a couple of in startups that you're excited about right now?
Yeah, I would like to tell you a little bit about a company called Lifeline Robotics. We invested from the Danish science ventures that I'm heading. That's a pure pandemic investments. They do automatic throat swabbing with the robot, so that you can take out the biologic sample from the throat of people. And we did the investment with one of the Klarna founders, and we have invested approximately syndicated 1 million euros in the company now, and they are rolling out the prototypes now, and that I'm really looking forward to that. And it's using a universal robot arm, which is another startup that we invested in, and that actually was acquired by Teradyne for 320 million euros in the United States a few years ago. So things are sort of sticking together in our COVID fight here.
Good to hear that. Nastia, of course, you don't have any programs running right now, but maybe you would like to mention one or two startups that are relevant to the pandemic era from from this current situation, from Belarus, from Minsk, maybe something from Tech Minsk.
Tech Minsk have just finished our online program. By the way, this is and we also joined the community of accelerators, which find online accelerating more effective in terms of accelerating startups. Regarding new companies which appear in Belarus, we have some pivots from well-established startup founders. For example, we have a company which produce different robots and different hardware stuff, and they created a very smart tool on diagnose different diseases related to COVID stuff.
What's the name of the startup?
Rosum Robotics. And by the way, we also have a good startup from Belarus, Learn Passport, and now it's Health Network. Those guys, they created a mobile application which also diagnosed different causes related to breathe. And they also pivot and change the model on evaluating of some diseases or risk factors, etc. And from Tech Minsk portfolio, we have a company which create a hardware tool to evaluate outdoor condition or situation, and they included this is a hardware plus a dashboard to have this data and statistic of
the name of the company?
Gene Sensor. So you could go to Gene Sensor website and pick up this device and measure this outdoor situation and in class situation on viruses and different risks as well.
As a travel startup, I really hope all of these companies work out and grow and help us the recovery. Sunil, any Techstars Toronto companies that you would like to mention that are doing interesting things in the pandemic era?
Well, sure. We have a company called Inkblot that is video-based mental health counseling with certified mental health counselors and therapists. They were in your batch, Edmunda, so they're doing very well. In fact, signing on so many incredible enterprise clients, institutions, universities, large employers, where you can have an on-demand opportunity to speak to somebody, 30-minute, 1-hour sessions by video. Of course, more necessary than ever in this environment. And I don't know if it's pandemic related. We announced an exit just yesterday, a company from also your class, Door, which is a digital mortgage tool. They had a main customer called Finastra, a big European company that was secured during Techstars, and it turns out that Finastra decided to buy Door outright. So it was announced yesterday. It's a very good exit for everybody. The founders are incredibly happy, and now they're part of this large European-based company. So that was just yesterday's news.
Awesome. Yeah, good for the guys from Doors, and big congrats to them. I just want to mention one, not startup anymore. What I'm excited about is IPO of Airbnb, which got started right in the middle of a financial crisis. Not only that they survived the financial crisis, they grew and expanded in the years that followed, and now survived the COVID situation. There are a huge inventory of apartments all around the world that are becoming a go-to place, if you're traveling for a weekend getaway. So with that note, I just want to, wish everyone stay strong and healthy and keep working and adjusting and, look what can be done in a times of crisis. Thank you all very much for joining us. I'm gonna turn off the live video right now. Friends in Belarus, stay strong, and hope to see you all soon after the events will calm down. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all. Thank you, Edmundus.